You're watching Kaitlyn Today. Today's guests include fashion designer and store owner of Lux Boutique, located both in East Longmeadow and West Hartford, Patti Liquori, rising jazz vocalist and musician Sarah Elizabeth Charles, and retired Lieutenant Kevin Dillon, creator of the internationally recognized combat system L.O.C.K.U.P. So let's get started with Kaitlyn Today. I'm here with Patti Liquori, here in East Longmeadow, and she owns Lux Boutique both here and in West Hartford. So Patti, can you tell me how you started Lux Boutique?
I started it about 3 years ago. I lived in Manhattan for a while. I worked for a designer, and when I moved back home, there wasn't really any opportunity for me in my field, so I kind of just had to create my own.
What kind of styles did you bring into your store?
All different styles, a lot of city stuff, stuff that you won't really find around here. I'm not set in one particular style. You know, sometimes, you want the boho vibe, you want to be a little rockery, you want to be edgy. We have a lot of cocktail dresses. So yeah, there's a little bit of something here for everyone.
I also hear you have your own clothing line. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. It's very exciting. It's called Lux Boutique after the store, and it's been about a year in the making, and it's just basically what I carry now, just my design.
Has the grand fashion capital of New York always played a big part in your life?
Yes, definitely. I went to school in New York. I went to FIT. I lived there for about 5-6 years. I worked for a designer. I worked for different entities in the fashion industry just to see what direction I wanted to go in myself. So yeah, definitely. I'm always in New York. I'm there probably like 3 or 4 times a month for the store. So yeah.
I know you also go to LA. And so what do you do over there?
In LA, that's where my design team is and my manufacturers. So that's where I go to check up on, how everything is going with my line.
So what are the must-haves for this spring and summer season?
For the spring, definitely the midi skirts, the skirts that, come right in between the ankle and the knee. Crop tops are really cute with those, the high-waisted ones. Color denim is still really, really popular. Florals are always nice for spring, pastels. But I would definitely say, the crop tops. And I've been seeing a lot of just like fun, funky t-shirts, and we've been doing those for our line too.
Awesome.
So those are coming back.
What do you consider a big fashion don't?
A big fashion don't for me is people who follow the rules. I believe everyone should have their own style, and if it looks good to you and you feel good and comfortable and confident in it, then you should wear it.
Has there ever been an instance when you made a mistake in your clothing, or you thought that it wasn't such a great idea?
Of course, when you're into fashion and you're taking risks, there's always going to be a mistake. But, I look back on pictures of when I was younger and I was like, but, that was the style then. So
It took me quite some time to break out of my fashion shell. And for someone who might be shy or afraid, do you have any advice for people who want to explore the fashion waters?
As far as dressing differently? Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I just tell people to have fun with it. If you want to, be a little edgy or do something different, then do it. Start small. If you want to add a pop of color with a necklace or a bag, but definitely go for it.
Now we're going to do rapid fire questions. Patti, favorite fashion magazine?
Vogue.
At home, sweatpants or yoga pants?
Yoga pants.
Favorite party outfit, 3 items only?
A little black dress, a moto-style jacket, and booties.
Toe ring or ankle bracelet?
Ankle bracelet.
Sudden era clothes change, 1920s or 1970s?
70s for sure.
Favorite place to shop?
Lux, duh.
Only 2 shoes left in your closet. Hot pink toe shoes or bedazzled Crocs?
What are hot pink toe shoes?
They have toe cutouts. Toe socks?
Toes?
No, they're actually shoes that have the toes in them.
I would have to say neither, and that might go back to my question of fashion don'ts.
Well, thank you so much, Patti, for doing this interview with me.
Yes, of course.
it to the Lux Boutique here in West Hartford. And Patti, please show us what you have in your store because it's just as amazing as the other one.
Absolutely. The West Hartford store, we are carrying prom dresses, so I definitely want to show you some of those for all you girls going to prom. We have some amazing selections.
Wow.
The open back is really in right now. It's so pretty. This is a similar style. This also has the open back. Isn't that so nice? This is the same one, but in the royal blue. This is a really pretty red one. This one is my favorite.
Oh my goodness.
I love that one.
Oh, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Now, what is so special about this location? Why did you choose West Hartford?
I just love it. There's a lot of traffic, foot traffic. There's always somewhere fun to go, a lot of restaurants, a lot of cute shops. So I just felt like we needed a store like this.
What else do you have in your store? Is it the same thing that you have here as in the other store?
This location, we are carrying prom dresses, which is different from the other store. We also do carry Rebecca Minkoff bags. And we can special order any dresses too. We have a bunch of books that the girls can look through, and we can special order anything for them.
So what's the website that you have? The viewers go so they can shop online at your store and look at some of the clothing that you have.
Yeah, definitely. It's www.shopluxy.com.
And check my Facebook page for special Lux Boutique deals.
Today we are at the Community Music School of Springfield, and we have Sarah Elizabeth Charles, a phenomenal musician and a fashion-forward trendsetter. So Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a musician?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for
First
coming.
I actually grew up at this school, so it's really fitting that we're having this interview here. I started studying piano, classical piano, and I was in the chorus here for years. I think I began studying here when I was about 6 years old, and then I started studying privately with a jazz vocal teacher when I was about 10 or 11. Her name was Montinia Scheider, and she's a local jazz artist. She's a wonderful, wonderful jazz musician. And one day she gave me one of her records, maybe two of her records, and I listened to them nonstop, and I had two favorite songs off of one of the records. They Can't Take That Away From Me and Don't Get Around Much Anymore. You know those tunes?
Yeah.
And I learned the songs verbatim and brought the record in to our lesson one day and put it on and surprised her and sang along with the CD. And she was really impressed by it, I guess, and decided to have me sit in with the Charles Majid Greeley Scholarship Jazz Ensemble here at the school that still exists today. And I thought I was just going up to sing a few tunes with the guys. I was 11 or 12 at the time. So I was a little nervous, but I didn't think it was anything serious, so I just sat in and sang with them. And afterward, the director of the school at the time, Eric Backrack, was there as well. And he and my teacher, Montinia, said, "Okay, that was your audition. You got in." So that's kind of how my musical beginnings started, I would say, because once I found jazz, I felt like I found the space that I belonged in, or a space and a genre through which I could communicate my music and who I was.
The self-portrait he paints.
You've worked with renowned musicians like Jerry Allen and Jimmy Owens. So how have they helped shape your career as a musician?
Wow. So I've had the opportunity to study with and work with a lot of amazing people. And for me, a lot of these people are musicians that I grew up listening to and idolizing. So when I finally got a chance to meet them, I met a lot of them after moving to New York City about 6 years ago.
Right.
And after meeting them and beginning to study with them or work with them, I think in terms of how they've shaped my career, I could get into the nitty-gritty about what each person has done for me, but I think it's better to just say that overall, working with more seasoned musicians who have been in the game and doing their thing for many more years than I could ever imagine, and do it so well and are so refined within that practice, the biggest thing that I've learned from experiencing them and working with them and playing with them It's just that you're never really done learning.
Where do you currently perform? I know that you perform in New York, but do you perform in California as well?
I did a West Coast tour with my band last year in 2013, and that was my first time performing on the West Coast. Oh, actually, I did a house concert the year before in San Francisco. So I've dabbled on the West Coast playing different gigs, but I did one full tour with my band there last year.
Now, what's the name of your band?
The S.E. Charles Quartet. Thank you. So we went out there, I think it was April of last year, and we played the Seattle Women in Jazz Festival in Seattle, and it was a promotional tour and a playing tour. Oh my goodness. And then we played a show and did a workshop in Stockton, California as well. I'm trying to remember.
Gosh, you're on the road.
Did an interview in Berkeley, California, which I fell in love with. I love Berkeley. And then finished the tour after a few more radio interviews in Northern California, finished the tour with a show in Lodi, California, which is in wine country. It was the most relaxing way to finish the tour.
Or where do you play in New York? For those who live on the East Coast and maybe can't go all the way across the country to see you play.
Yeah, it's funny. I had perhaps one of the most long-standing regular gigs in New York City ever. It was a band, the players who I play with in Manor Effect, the pianist in the group, Logan Thomas, got us a gig in Times Square.
Oh, awesome.
About 4.5 years ago, maybe. But we played there twice a week for a while, and then we started to play there once a week, every single week for about 3 years.
Wow.
And that ended last June. I believe I'm remembering that correctly. And since then, it's hard to answer the question as to where I play regularly because it's very sporadic. A club that I'm beginning to call home because I'm playing there a lot more often is Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola at Jazz at Lincoln Center. I've been playing there with my quartet, with the S.E. Charles Quartet. Most recently, I also played there with George Cables, one of the heroes that you talked about earlier, who I'm writing lyrics to his songbook.
Oh,
George
wow.
is phenomenal, and he's been around forever and played with everybody. So I played there with him in November. So Dizzy's is kind of like sort of my home base right now.
That's the spot right now.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's a beautiful club. It has beautiful sound, beautiful room, beautiful view, obviously. Yeah, and it just depends on when you catch me. But my website, sarahelizabethcharles.com, is always up to date. So you can always, if you're on the East Coast, you can always go to my website and check it out and see where I'm going to be.
You performed at a fashion show, correct?
Yes.
So how was that experience with models walking around you?
I felt very short. Yeah, that was really fun. I think I did that for about 3 seasons. It was at New York Fashion Week.
Wow.
And at the time, they were based at the Waldorf Astoria. So all of the shows were going on throughout the hotel. And it really was, like, there were fashion designers and makeup artists and hair people and everybody just running around everywhere, and models running around everywhere like crazy. I hadn't really experienced that world ever before, and it was really fun. But this particular designer, Andres Aquino, really likes to have live performance art incorporated into his fashion shows. Wow. So it's really cool, and he called upon me. He's also a poet, so he called upon me to sort of take his poetry and write compositions to his poetry. And at first, I was just going to write, and other people were going to perform. We actually met in the subway randomly. I was holding my mic stand, and he mistook it for a tripod that a camera goes on. He said, "Oh, are you a photographer?" And I said, "No, I'm a vocalist." He said, "Are you any good?" I said, "I don't know. You should check me out." And then we got to talking, and but anyway. He called upon me to write compositions to his poetry or inspired by his poetry. And so I did that, and then when I brought him what I had written, he said, "You know, I think you should sing it at the show. I think you should sing these pieces."
How do you manage such a busy schedule? You fly from the East Coast and back, and you're doing all these performances around the country.
I don't see it as being busy. I see it as being what I wanted it to be. So it's not as if I'm overwhelmed all of a sudden and I'm saying, "Oh, wow, you know, this is too much," because this is what I want to be doing. I'm actually not nearly as busy as I want to be. So I'm working, right now I'm busy trying to get busier. Oh my So that's part of the life, I think, that's part of the life of a musician who wants to travel and tour, is the busyness, the jet setting and the travel. So I'm excited to be more busy. I'm excited to be traveling more. I'm excited to see the world.
Now, moving on to your charity. So what is the charity that you're a part of? I know this is a big part of your life.
Yeah, last summer, I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory on it. Last summer I performed at a wonderful club in Old Lyme, Connecticut. It's called the Side Door Jazz Club. And a woman who basically helps to run the entire show there, Jan Mullen, is on the board of directors, for Rise to Shine, an organization based in Font-Parisien, Haiti. And we got to talking at the show. She had listened to my record and said, you know, I noticed that you sing Haitian folkloric music. What is that about? And she hadn't yet met my father. You meet me and you might not immediately think, oh, she's Haitian. But I told her that my father's family was from Haiti, and she started telling me about Rise to Shine, and saying that at their last board meeting they were talking about incorporating music into their curriculum in a more defined way, and make it, you know, to have music have a little bit more of a defined role within their curriculum, and asked if I would be interested in being involved in it. And I hadn't yet been to Haiti, and I've been wanting to go to Haiti since I was a little girl. I've been bugging my father and my mother to take me. And they were opening their new school at the end of September, beginning of October. And so she put me in touch with their director, with the founder of the organization. And he said, you know, if you're really wanting, after a phone conversation in San Francisco, he said, if you're really wanting to go, let's make it happen. And if you think that you can design a curriculum before we go, and make it work for us, he's like, we're flexible. Let's see what we can do. Just get on a plane and let's see what happens. So that's how I got involved with Rise to Shine.
So would you consider Haiti to be a life-changing experience?
Yes. The funny thing is I sort of knew it always would be. I was just waiting for it to happen. I was waiting to go. I think it's important to know where you come from. And for me, you know, growing up, I always knew what my background was. But, you know, I didn't grow up speaking Creole. My mother's family is French Canadian. I didn't grow up speaking Quebecois fluently. I didn't grow up speaking any of those languages. So I think my brothers and I all got little bits and pieces of the culture. So the food, for one thing, which is great. Can't complain about that. But I was waiting to kind of be able to kind of experience it and feel it in a way that I hadn't been able to, because I hadn't been there or I hadn't delved deep enough. And that was sort of on me. So when I started playing and arranging Haitian folk music about 3 years ago, that was the first step, I think, of my, I guess you can call it a life-changing experience, but sort of just this period of time and an experience that I had always sort of just waited for. I knew that it would happen one day, and I wanted it to happen naturally, and it did. All of these things came to me by chance, and going to Haiti, I think the most poignant moment for me was meeting the kids. We got the school ready for the first 3 days that we were there, and then on Tuesday they had Monday off, and I was really disappointed. We didn't know that, but they had Monday off, and so school started that Tuesday, and the kids arrived, and just seeing their faces and meeting their parents, and there were the waiting list even for the organization is, they can't accommodate, you know, 200 kids, at least not yet. Maybe one day they will be able to. But people know about this organization, and they travel with their kids, sometimes 40 minutes. It's a 40-minute walk to get to the school. So these are people who really just want to be a part of this organization because they're doing such great work, and they want their children to be a part of it. But yeah, seeing those kids and seeing their faces, and that was very poignant for me.
Well, thank you so much for this interview, Sarah.
Thank you,
Had
Kaitlyn.
a great time. And if you want to find out more information about Sarah and her charity, visit www.facebook.com/Kaitlyn today. Retired Lieutenant Kevin Dillon is our special Kaitlyn Today guest. He is a 25-year veteran law enforcement officer. He is an international police combat instructor, a SWAT instructor, a National Academy graduate of the FBI, and a Martial Arts Hall of Fame inductee. So, Kevin, I know I didn't hit everything on your list. So just tell me, what else did I miss?
Well, you hit the high points. It's a wonderful career. I was very fortunate because I started in law enforcement when I was probably your age.
Oh, wow.
When I was 15 years old, and my first combative instructor was a Windsor police officer by the name of Carl Thomas. And Carl was a Green Beret, Vietnam veteran, so I started training with him when I was very, very young. So by the time I was 19, I was very well versed in law enforcement, so I got hired very young in law enforcement. A year out of high school I was on the job.
Oh, wow.
So I served in patrol for 9 years, and I was a detective for 5 or 6 years, which I kind of focused a lot on crimes against women, sexual assaults, crimes against children. Then I made sergeant after that, and I did that for 5 years, and then I started to run training units. Then I made detective or lieutenant, and then I was doing that for 3 or 4 years, and back in the detective division for my last 4 or 5 years, and quite a stint on SWAT. So it was very good, nice career.
Was there ever a time during your training when you doubted your dream of wanting to become a law enforcer?
No,
Never.
no. Matter of fact, I retired in 2006, and it's still what I'm doing. You know, I'm 52 now, and it's been I've been doing this for over 30 years in law enforcement. And when I retired, I just took a different path.
Right.
I did, which is now my specialty is just training law enforcement, and that's branched into training civilians. But it's really the same kind of concept. But no, not once did I ever regret it.
I think your biggest accomplishment is your L.O.C.K.U.P combat system. Can you tell the audience a little bit about this system that you created?
Sure. In law enforcement, especially, I was learning the law enforcement combat system before I was even a police officer. And throughout the years, I trained in all the different disciplines they were trying to teach police officers. But at the time, they really weren't measuring success of the techniques or what they were teaching these officers. And in law enforcement, they're very limited in the amount of training they get. They weren't analyzing the use of forces to find out the effectiveness of it. So throughout, and I took every training program I could. In about 2000, I ended up writing the curriculum with the team for the Connecticut Police Academy. But what's important that if you can't track and trend and evaluate it quantifiably, if it's working or not,
Right.
you know, it's just another theory-based martial art. So we would track efficiency as much as we can, because what we did, develop it gross motor. So they need to retain the information.
Right.
Because if you train something, you can't remember it, retain it, then you won't be able to retrieve it and perform it. So gross motor, simplified, decisive, plus we analyze it. What I taught in 2000 is not what you see today.
Right.
Because over the years, we consistently modify it based on the research, based on the simplicity, based on what works. And that's why it's been such an effective system. Because it does work for officers. Not for the guys like me who spent my whole life doing it, but for the average officer that learns some basic moves that can retain it and perform.
You also say that combat fighting tactics are important to mold for each police officer. Why is this important to you?
Well, because unfortunately violence is part of our profession. And violence is far too much part of our culture too.
Right.
Far too much. And it's dressed in, it's just, it's not addressed effectively, so it's just almost like permeates, and so officers are getting into violent encounters because it's part of the job. Domestic disputes, incapacitated people, trying to control somebody that's drug-induced, so they need it. And throughout the years, they would try to give them different tools, the baton, the taser, the OC spray. But you can spray somebody in the face, or you can hit them with a baton. You still need to find a way to put the handcuffs behind their back to secure them. And that's why all officers need training.
So I know you train both law enforcers and civilians. What are the differences between training the two?
The civilian population I teach is how to deal with violence ahead of time. You know, because if you have a little peanut like yourself, all right, and as smart as you are, but if you have somebody who's twice your size, even your fighting skills might not help you. So I teach them all about what their brain does. I teach them all how to prepare themselves before they get into that environment, how to identify potential threats, how to try to de-escalate potential threats, and always how to have escape routes to go.
Right. So always thinking one step ahead.
You have to. It's a neurological process.
So when you're telling this to civilians, what kind of advice do you give them?
All right. It's first, no matter where you go, you have to assess your environment. All right. You have to understand where the exits are, and you have to put those in your head ahead of time, because we're a tribal species. Even when our ancestors, They were tribal and based. That's why if you and I are all at a big concert and something happens, we see the crowd going that way, we're going to follow it. All right, because that's the way we are. When the exits could be right there. Under stress, your decision capability shuts down. Well, your prefrontal cortex, where your logic and reasoning, when something happens, your brain, it modifies. The midbrain takes over. Your fight or flight response. You want that to draw from the exit that you've already just put in your brain.
Right.
Because if you don't put it in there, you'll just follow the rest of the people.
Oh, yeah.
That make sense?
Yeah.
That's why, I fly all the time. I fly like once a week. I could be a United representative. However, they've even done a study that when you sit in an aircraft, you really do want to turn and look to see where those seats are. Because the study revealed those who actually turn and look were significantly more likely to get out of the aircraft. All right, because of stress, what it does to the brain.
Right.
So if you're going out to dinner, if you're driving, you always want to be very, very situationally aware of what's going on.
So what is your favorite place that you visited so far?
Now, I have to be careful with this because I don't want to offend any places I've been to because I love every place I've been to. Love them. All right, but my favorite has got to be South France.
Ah.
Yeah.
What do you like about
Yeah,
South
man,
France?
it was nice. I've been there. I have a team in Europe called Group 9. Now, they're professional bodyguards, and they have their own training academy. As a matter of fact, you see them a lot at the Cannes Film Festival. Well, they brought us out there to train their personnel because they need to train their personnel how to take down somebody that might just want to touch you because you're a celebrity or might want to touch you to cause you harm. But they still need immediate control tactics. So we've been out there a few times. So they teach in Europe for me. But they brought us out to dinner on the Mediterranean, dinner in Nice. Oh man, it was Cannes. It was just I love South France, and they were just wonderful, wonderful hosts.
Now, I consider there to be a story behind every retirement. What made you decide that this was it?
Mine, I wish I could say, well, I had a 5-year business plan. Upon retiring, I decided to take my actions and further my investment. That's not the case. Everything just kind of fell into place for me, and it's been very fortunate for me because I started teaching the L.O.C.K.U.P program in 2000, so I had it very well established. So when I retired, I'm like, I had a good solid base, so I had an opportunity to take what I've already established and try to bring it to the international market. And that's how it worked, and it's worked out perfectly because the first couple of years I really didn't make any money because I invested everything back into my company.
Right.
But after that, it really took off. And when you have such a passion for something, I still don't think I've worked a day in my life. True story.
That's good.
I'm not making it up. Really, it's a true story.
So, is that what you enjoy most about being a retiree?
Is the training?
Yes.
Yes, because you know what? I've gotten emails from like this. Your course saved my life. And they tell me a situation that they were violently attacked, and especially the brain one. This officer was talking about how you told me panic would happen, and what you taught me made me protect myself and save my life. What greater purpose do you have?
Right.
So when you make a difference and you're giving somebody else skills that you impart that let them go home to their husbands and wives and children, that's the lottery. So you do make it. Everybody wants to make a difference, and we want to impart knowledge on them that'll be effective for them and they can actually protect them on the street.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for your advice and doing this fantastic interview with me.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Haven't seen the latest episode of Kaitlyn Today? Visit youtube.com/A Cali Production or type Kaitlyn Alley in the search bar. And thank you for watching Kaitlyn Today. Tune in next time.